fun fact, that's what I look like. I do not look.
I'm sorry, what? What? That's what I look like. It looks like a Stone Toss comic, but like gay. I'm sorry. I just had to pause. I've asked Carlin before, and I'm like, how? Again, I realize some people aren't her fan, but this woman, I don't know how she finds the things that she finds. I don't know how she does it. I've asked her for like pointers before, and she did like a bit. She just gets. And this took place 2 days ago. She is like right on top of it, and like it is a skill that I feel like very few other people have, is actually finding like original things. A lot of people, most people on the internet, and something again that when I'm making this criticism, I'm looking inwardly first. A lot of people on the internet that make content creators are oftentimes just reacting to other people's content or whatever, rather than doing their own original thing. Carlin does her own original thing constantly. She finds stuff like this constantly, and that's not easy, and she makes it look so easy. So again, look at this thing. This little sassy hand. All right, I'm sorry. I'm still trying to find like some of his stuff online. What in the hell?
Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I do Monday through Friday on this here YouTube channel, on Rumble, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, where we talk about, well, the cult of the left and do deep dives into the left, and we look at content that no one else on the internet is looking at because, as Elle just said, no one else takes the time to find this content but me. Now, if you missed it, you really missed something. I'll tell you what Elle was referring to is this piece I released a couple of days ago, which is last weekend, or this past weekend. I went undercover at the University of Colorado at Boulder for the Transforming Gender Conference. I still have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to be releasing from this, but this is the big one. And if you missed the stream we did the other day, we watched the full presentation about how multiple personality disorder, or dissociative disorder, they're trying to push it as a gender identity, and they're trying to normalize it. And this was a presentation done by a PhD student at the University of Colorado, almost getting ready to graduate. It is one of the most disturbing things that I have ever seen in my life. I didn't even expect things were going to reach that height when I went undercover at this conference, but we got that. We got a lot more coming out of that as well, coming up very soon. But I'm basically over here, I'm going through all of these different recordings that we have and all of the different evidence, and I'm just like, I'm taking a little bit of time with it because it's a lot of information to sift through. But in the meantime, I do have a new podcast up on the Substack if people want to listen to it. Now, I have 2 podcasts. I don't know if people know this because I don't talk about it that much. I have the Actively Unwoke podcast, which you can go to by going over to my Substack, which is Carlin, Karlyn, .substack.com, and clicking on podcast. And it will bring you right to the Actively Unwoke podcast. This is a free podcast that I do that you can find on all major podcasting platforms, to include Apple Podcasts, to include Spotify. I think I'm on some other ones as well, but Apple and Spotify are the main ones. You can sign up and get your streams on there if you want, or you can head over to the website and listen to it. But this is a podcast I did because, listen, Elle wonders why I am able to find the stuff that I do. And it's actually really, really simple. It's like, I've been researching this stuff for almost 4 years now. Almost every single day of my life, I go down so many rabbit holes. And the reality is that once you find them, and once you learn the language, I see this all the time. People ask me all the time, Carlin, what do we need to do to fight back against the left? And I say, learn the language. That's the very first thing you need to do. And they go, we already know the language. I go, no, you don't. No, you don't. You think you do, but I promise you, you don't. And I'm sorry, it's not your fault that you don't know the language. The fact of the matter is that the people who are supposed to teach you this failed you. The influencers failed you. The opinion leaders failed you. The pundits, the commentators, the so-called journalists, they all failed you. I'm really sorry about that. I am. But the reason that I can find this stuff, like we found at the University of Colorado, like I find all the time, is because I know the language. And once you know the language, it's actually really easy to get in there and to find what you're looking for. But if you don't know the language, you're going to be looking for the wrong thing. And I'm going to give you an example of that. So I released this podcast earlier today, basically trying to explain to people, this is why the left wins. This is why the left wins and the right loses perpetually all the time. And it all comes down to expressing your ideas. The left expresses their ideas all of the time. The most powerful people in any social system, whether that be in your workplace, whether that be in your friend group, whether that be in your family, whether that be in any sort of club or community organization you're involved in, the most powerful people in any organization are the ones who are expressing their ideas. And so the left is constantly expressing their ideas. They are constantly teaching. They have their own publishing companies. They have thousands of events. Like that gender ideology conference that I went to in Colorado, that's like one of hundreds of them that I could have gone to over the next couple months. And if I'm very lucky, you guys are going to be able to crowdfund to get me to more of them, because I really do have a giant ass list of gender conferences, just of gender conferences. They're not organizing Gnostic sex cults. They're definitely not doing that. But let me show you just a couple of things that have popped up in the last week. And guys, I found this in a 15-minute search on YouTube. This wasn't even that hard to find. On the San Francisco Public Library YouTube page, they've got a whole series, Pride in Panels. This one in particular is about queer horror comics. Queer horror comics. If we look in the sidebar right here, we can see this is about queer erotic comics. Oh, maybe we can watch that presentation sometime. That'll be a little bit sassy. Queer, Think of the Children, queer all ages comics. Hello. Out in the world, publishing queer comics. They've got a whole series of this. This is on the taxpayer-funded San Francisco Public Library YouTube channel. We've got that. We've got, this is on the YouTube channel, the Museum of Natural and Cultural History, I'm going to bet. This is a University of Oregon presentation about queer history. They've got that. This is on the Milwaukee PBS YouTube channel. This is a student-produced documentary called Breaking the Binary. If you listen to James Lindsay, he will tell you that the left is forming a Gnostic sex cult. He's wrong. What he won't tell you is they're trying to abolish the gender binary. Why are they trying to abolish the gender binary, which means men and women? They're trying to abolish the gender binary because they believe that capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership, created the gender binary that put men in the workplace where they had all the power and made all the money, and women in the home doing the unpaid labor of raising the children in the nuclear family. And the nuclear family perpetuates capitalism through social reproduction theory. It's not a Gnostic sex cult. They're telling us breaking the binary on the Milwaukee PBS YouTube channel, and they're publishing documentaries about that. On this one, this is a booksellers conference. This is actually interesting. This is a fictional booksellers conference, or excuse me, not the conference isn't fictional. The books are fiction. A fiction booksellers conference in which they're talking about infusing information about breaking the binary into fictional books. Let me just read you the description of this. Contemporary fiction increasingly invites the reader to see race, gender, and sexuality not as binary identities, but as vibrant spectrums of diversity. This year's new fiction is opening up a space for new ideas about how we might expand our understanding of identity, and a myriad of relational dynamics are possible beyond the normative concepts of race, gender, and sexuality. So this took place at a conference in Washington, D.C. It is now on YouTube, and we can go in and learn how they are using fictional books, and I'm going to bet they're young adult fiction, in order to advance ideas around breaking the gender binary. That's another one. Let's see. We've got the University of Connecticut School of Social Work, LGBTQ plus 101, tips for creating affirming spaces. We've got the Arizona Library Association, LGBTQ plus outreach and community building. We've got the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Quad Cities. This is called Pride in Memory, the Pink Triangle. This is about advancing queer stuff. We've got in the Community Shares of Wisconsin, how are we supporting BIPOC LGBTQ plus youth from elementary school? And what we're going to watch today is not one, but two panels from South by Southwest. Who knows what South by Southwest is? I do. You know how I know what South by Southwest is? Because I spoke at South by Southwest on more than one occasion. Actually, my first presentation, I did a solo talk at South by Southwest. Do you guys know how hard it is to get a solo talk at South by Southwest? I did it. I think it was in 2018. And I did my Playing Politics talk. And the solo talk that I had at South by Southwest turned into my first book. So South by Southwest is a ginormous conference. It's huge. It's in Austin, Texas every March. There's kind of like a cultural aspect to it, a technology aspect. It used to be called South by South Interactive, but it's kind of like technology and cultural now. There's a film festival associated with it. There's a music festival associated with it. There's a whole education component of the conference. It is a massive effing conference. And I've got today, because someone uploaded them to YouTube, 2 queer activism panels that were at South by Southwest. And yes, our old friend Dina Simmons, who is a socialist teacher trainer that was paid $32,000 by the Cambridge, Massachusetts School District, she was at South by Southwest this past year. I think she was at the South by Southwest EDU, which is the education conference that precedes it. Anyway, my point is this, guys. The left is constantly sharing their ideas, constantly pushing forward. They don't give an F what the right is ringing about on Twitter. You know, I was looking at Chris Rufo's Twitter right before this. And again, I have a lot of respect for Chris Rufo. I really am not trying to shit on him. I think his tactics are a bit misguided. And so I mean this as constructive criticism, all right? I was looking at Chris Rufo's Twitter and he's like, we made Harvard trend on Twitter. We're winning, bro. Chris Rufo thinks because he's getting people in trouble for plagiarism at Harvard and he's getting that to trend on Twitter, that's going to change the entire conversation around DEI. Now, I have no doubt that it's going to get Chris Rufo on lots of podcasts and interviews on conservative networks. He was just on Joe Rogan. You know what? Good for him. Not going to take anything away from him. Listen, again, I think he's a very effective person at what he does. But if you are under any illusion that Chris Rufo reading about Harvard on Twitter, even getting it to trend on Twitter, is going to change anything at all, I've got a bridge to sell you, bro. Because the conservative right, they really think this is all just about trending on goddamn Twitter. And they're going to win the culture war by trending on Twitter. You guys know, right, that most people don't actually use Twitter. The left is out there, on the other hand, speaking at South by Southwest. They're doing this stuff through the churches. They're doing this stuff through community organizations in Wisconsin. They're doing stuff through local library associations. They're doing stuff through the universities. They're doing stuff through books. They're getting their message into fiction books that are targeting kids. They're doing stuff through public broadcasting. They're doing stuff through museums and more universities. They're doing stuff again through more libraries. And this is just those presentations that I pulled up. Those are all from the last week. Those are all brand new. Those aren't old. Those are from the last week. That was a 15-minute search. Can you imagine how many I could have pulled up if I spent an hour searching? I'll tell you, probably hundreds. This is why it is so important for people to learn the language. Because if you don't know the language, you don't know how to find this stuff. You don't know what to look for, and you don't know how to identify it when it's showing up in your real life. And I promise you, when it shows up in your real life, nothing that is trending on Twitter is going to save you. So if you want to hear that podcast, head over to my Substack. Again, it's Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. You can find the podcast on the homepage right now. You can also find it on iTunes and Spotify, and I'm sure a couple other places as well. And you can listen to my expanded thoughts about that, but I do think this is really important, guys. And we are the only ones that are actually looking at this information. There is no one else that it's doing this, because this is the boring stuff. Every single thing up here is woke as shit. Every single one of these is advancing a far left political ideology that is going to impact you, if it hasn't already, and is going to impact your children. It's going to impact your children a lot worse than it's going to impact you. And no one is paying attention to this, because they're all reading about clickbait and outrage porn on Twitter, and they think they're saving the world. But they're not. They're not. Kate asks, is this a top-down, highly organized effort, or rather individuals doing this out of their own volition? Kate, I'm glad you asked that. I have an article for that will explain it to you. If you go to my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and you go to the Woke Mind series, which is right up at the top, the very first article in the Woke Mind series is called, Who is the Leader on the Left? That article will explain it. This is not top-down. This is not what you think it is. Conservatives think in very hierarchical terms. The left doesn't think that way. So I wrote a whole article explaining the psychology of the left and how they're doing what they're doing. This isn't even the only one that I've written on that. You can also go into the Woke 101 series. And you can look at this one, which is number 5 for this year, How the Left Gains Power and Why Winning Elections Will Not Defeat Them. That's another one that you can read that will explain this. But you cannot expect that the left is going to act like the right does. These are completely different groups. And one of the reasons that the right is always losing to the left is the right thinks they understand the left. They think that because they see the conservative outrage clickbait bullshit that they understand the left. But they don't. And so the left has got the right in a constant state of chasing its own tail, or in a constant state of distraction, focusing on bullshit that doesn't matter. And every second that the right is focusing on things that don't matter, guess what the left is doing? They're out there doing presentations to small groups in their communities. And then lucky us, they put those presentations online so we can watch them. And if you know the language, you know how to understand what they're doing. So that's what we're doing here on this show, guys. That is what we're doing today. We're going to watch, and I have to warn people, the audio in these is not great. But I want to see what was presented at South by Southwest. And sadly, the only way I have to see what was presented at South by Southwest is with basically homemade recordings of the presentations. So we're going to watch a couple of presentations. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to rely on the captions heavily to help us. That is what we're doing today, guys. We are watching a couple queer activism presentations from South by Southwest. The first one is called Defending Democracy, LGBTQ Activism and Power. On March 9th, 2024, Trans Lash Media founder and CEO, presented in this panel. So we don't really know much more about it than that. But we also have this one, Responsible Reporting on Anti-Trans Violence for Journalists. And this is also from South by Southwest 2024. And we're just going to give a watch. And we're going to see what they talked about. And maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's something. So guys, if you want to support the work I'm doing, the very best thing you can do, first of all, mount the like button for me. Per usual, there's a shocking disparity between the number of people who are watching right now and the number of people who've mounted the like button for me. So please make sure you're doing that. Please make sure you are subscribed on whatever channel you are watching on, whether that be YouTube, whether that be X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, whether that be Rumble. I do want to say a special hi over to my Rumble peeps. I do see you guys. I had the chat pulled up if you guys want to hang out in the chat and let us know what you think. Sadly, I cannot display Rumble chats on my screen because Rumble isn't yet integrated with StreamYard, but you guys can still chat in and I can still see what's going on. And of course, if you want to support the work I'm doing, head over to the Substack, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am going to be doing another funding drive to do some undercover journalism. And so you guys can help me get a head start on that because you guys fund my undercover journalism. You guys are the reason that I got to go to the University of Colorado. I cannot do it without you. You know, I had some bitches. Actually, you know what? Do you guys want to see the haters that are complaining about me on Twitter? Can we do that just a little bit? Because I had some bitches on Twitter earlier today and they were like, how dare Carlyn ask for money for funding? And I was like, do you understand how independent journalism works? Independent journalism is independent because normal people fund it. I don't want to go to some big political donor and get money to support my work, although I could. I don't want to go work for some organization that has a narrative that they want me to sell. I don't want to do any of that. My only job is to show up, show you what's going on, show you receipts, and let you decide for yourself what you think. And that's because my work is 100% funded by normal ass people. But there are some bitches on Twitter who don't like that. I want to show you guys. So I have this one woman. God fucking damn it. I have this one woman. I'm gonna have to change my name now. Fuck. God damn it. God damn it. I'm about to lose another sock account. It's okay. We can still take advantage of it for now. I thought the banner at the bottom was going to cover it up, but it didn't. So whatever. I just have to make another sock account. Fuck it. See, what happens is my haters watch every single stream that I do to try to identify the names of my sock accounts. And then once they do, they block me in all those accounts. And then I have to go and create another fucking sock account. This actually is like, it is actually annoying to me because I actually was building out this sock account. I've got a whole bunch of leftists I'm following on this account. Like, whatever. I'm going to have to do it all over again. Fine. But it'll be worth it. So what you're going to see, and it'll be fun too. It'll be fun to see how long it takes them all to block me. I'm betting within 10 minutes from now, they're all going to have me blocked on this account because they're all watching right now. Everyone wave. Anyway, the reason I wanted to show you guys this is check this out. Check this out. Do you guys remember Una? And I'm calling her Una because she hates it. Apparently, there's a different way to pronounce her name. I have no idea how to pronounce her name, nor do I really effing care. Una has been seething about me. She has been seething about me for months. I've never even spoken to this woman. But she's friends with Carrie. And so it is what it is. And she has been seething about me. And apparently, Una made a whole video about me. And I haven't actually watched the video. Thank you, William. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. But they did this whole thing where they were complaining about me just like over and over and over again. And Una chimes in and she's like, she's a mediocre thumb and her shtick is grinding axes. Yes, guys, that's all I ever do. That's all I ever do on the internet is I grind axes. Yeah. The minute people stop giving her tools, she won't be able to keep it up. It's a shame because she has talent. She seems hell-bent on this, whatever. I feel sorry for her. And then Una made a whole movie about me. Let's watch this movie. Let's see what it is. Una says she's a mediocre thumb. She's a mediocre thug with one tool, an axe to grind. Were it not for the genius of the crowd, she'd still be trying to claw her way up HR at the Ivy League or some other place where her nature could exploit her love for psychological manipulation. I never worked in HR. I'm an organizational psychologist that contracted oftentimes with HR departments, but I never actually worked in HR, Una. An esoteric mumbo jumbo. Una, I was a featured speaker at the biggest HR conferences in the fucking world. Hey, true, I was. Before I decided to take a break from that during the pandemic to do this. True. So you can suck a dick. If I wanted to go do HR consulting and go do corporate training, where, by the way, I would make more money than I'm making now. True. I could go back and do that any effing time. And don't think I haven't considered it. I could. But right now, this is more important. And you can have all the feelings you want about that. It wouldn't even be that hard for me to get back into the HR stuff if I wanted to. True. So that's their video. That's their video own of me. Now, like, watch what happened next. So now we got to go into the, to like this poetry painter bitch. Hang on. Go into the poetry painter bitch. Let's see. Let me show you. Because she was tweeting about this earlier. Hang on. Hang on. Oh, she's tweeting Dave Rubin. Of course she is. Of course she is. Okay. So then Poetry Painter retweets this and she says, "Oh my goodness, this is glorious. The thing about it is no, she can't. She can't go back to a high-paying job in HR anytime she wants. No one is going to hire her." Because these bitches have been just completely committed to trying to destroy me and destroy any chance I have of ever making money in the world again for like almost 4 fucking years. And so they've convinced themselves in their head. They're like, Carlin has to grift on the internet. It's the only thing she can do. She can't ever go back and get a normal job again. Now, what they don't know is, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. I still have psychological assessment clients that I run profiles for that have been working with me for longer than these people have even known who I am. So the notion that I can't go back and do exactly what I was doing before is ridiculous. But they have to re and complain about this and blah blah blah. And Poetry Painter thinks that this video is just awesome, and she doesn't feel sorry for me because I am constantly viciously attacking people. And here is the kicker that I wanted to show you guys. Here's the kicker. And they do this shit all the goddamn time, every day of my life. Here's the kicker. When I said, well, yeah, they do act like crabs in a bucket. That is exactly the point. When I said, no one tell them that I'm still running disc assessments for clients that have literally been with me for a long ass effing time, and I can go back and do my consulting any damn time I want to. The response is, let's assume this is true. So she doesn't need the money. She's just constantly begging for money in order to get possessed by demons. So we know Poetry Painter is watching. Because Poetry Painter, of course, who is my biggest fan on the internet, because she's fucking psychotic. We know she's watching because how would she know that I got possessed by a demon at that Colorado conference if she wasn't watching? She's constantly begging for money. If she's raking in the money from corporate clients, why is she begging for money? Well, let me explain it. Let me explain why I ask people to go to my Substack and sign up for $8 a month or $80 a year. Because independent journalism costs money. The time that I spend doing these streams costs money. It does. Every hour, and I stream for what? At least 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, oftentimes 3, 4, 5. We streamed for almost 6 hours yesterday. Every hour I spend doing a stream on here, I could be doing something else that would be making me more money. I don't make a lot of money from these streams. And that's fine because people fund my work through super chats, or they fund it through subscriptions, or they fund it for merchandise purchases. And that's how I rationalize being able to spend time doing this, which I think is actually significantly more important than doing corporate consulting, rather than doing consulting where I can make much more money. Like significantly, I was making between $8,000 and $10,000 a day, guys, like doing corporate consulting. That's reality. But I'm choosing to do this because I think this is more important. I think this is more impactful. And I think that this is actually in the long run going to have more of an impact. But in order to do that, I need it to be independently funded. And I'm very lucky and very blessed that I have an audience that understands the importance of what I'm doing. And the haters can whine and cry all they want on the internet about it. And it ain't going to make no fucking difference because you guys get it. And that's why I love you. And then we're just going to keep doing this for as long as you guys want to fund me. We'll keep doing more conference infiltrations. We'll keep doing more spy streams. We'll keep doing more undercover work. And we'll keep doing more stuff like this, where we watch the presentations that no one else wants to fucking watch. And that's how we know what's coming next. And this is how we stay years, literally years, ahead of every conservative pundit, ahead of every conservative commentator, ahead of every journalist, by actually doing the work and watching the presentations. All right, guys. So if you want to fund the work I'm doing, head over to the Substack. You can send in a super chat. You can also head over to my merch store, which is unwokeart.com, and pick up some sweet merch like the Make McCarthyism Great Again design that's only going to be available for about another week and a couple of days. All sorts of other great stuff in the store, to include I need to get one of these. I don't have one of these yet. The Obey collection. This is out of the dystopian collection that I did over Christmas. We've got the Fahrenheit 451 shirt. I really love this design. It looks so cool. When you see them in person, it looks awesome. This is one of my favorite designs, the 1984 shirt. Lots of cool stuff over in the Unwoke Art store. Of course, socialists are gay. I mean, come on. Come on. Obviously. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's jump right into it, guys. We are watching presentations from South by Southwest. Let me get them up on the screen. I'm really bummed I'm going to have to create a new sock account. God damn it. Fuck. God damn it. God damn it. Oh, well. Such as it goes. Another day, another sock account lost, but there'll be a new one within about 15 minutes. All right, guys, we are watching. The first one we're going to watch is the Defending Democracy, LGBTQ Activism and Power panel from South by Southwest 2024. I need everyone to just be flexible in terms of the sound, okay? Sound is not great. Headphones will help you. Headphones are our friend. I've also turned the sound up in the browser. Use the captions. We're going to see what happened.
We don't only mean physical violence, but we mean policy violence. We mean cultural violence. We mean political violence. And so what we do is we center the humanity of trans people as an antidote to the ignorance that is being used as a vector to attack trans people. And I think increasingly from the time that I started Trans Lash 2018, and now to the team that we have, every single year that I've done the work, the importance of the work to me becomes clearer and clearer. And that's because the attacks on trans people are not only being used as a vector to undermine the humanity of trans people, but it is also being used to undermine our democracy in some really key ways. And that those key ways include, one, having to have an issue, especially in light of the Dobbs decision that continues to keep their core voters involved, right? And we're specifically talking about white non-rural voters who vote who are actually super voters because they show up almost in every single election. They show up in 90% of elections, and it's because of the way in which they are constantly fed a story about their centrality and importance. The other thing that's really important about these attacks is the way in which they are a test run for how you can put together a series of laws that exclude an entire group of people. And that once you see what that successful mix is in one place, you begin to apply it in a series of others and expand who it applies to. This is essentially how we got Jim Crow laws in the South. There were experimentations in various states about how you were going to push African Americans out of public life. Once that kind of cocktail of laws became crystallized, you then saw them replicated across the South. And I think that it's really hard that if you're not trans to dismiss and to not pay attention to or to not believe that what is happening to trans people is important or could impact you. But if I were to blindfold you all and teleport you to a country and say, in this country, in this space, schools don't have to be safe for children. In this space, people can be denied healthcare because of who they are. And in this space, children can be separated from their parents solely because their parents love them. If I were telling you that, you would assume that we were essentially talking about either Stalinist Russia in the 1930s, or we were talking about Germany 1933. I wish we could put a muffler on the doors. Muffle the doors. But I'm talking about the United States of America in 2024. That is the country that you are living in. And roughly 18 states have passed some combination of laws that target trans people and trans kids. And one of the things that you're going to hear from this incredible panel of people who have been dealing with this for years, who've been sounding the alarms for years, who have been kind of in their own way, having various experience with this, is to understand that this is just the beginning. We're just kind of on this voyage together. And so what we want to do is to link for you in ways that you can understand the connections here between what's happening to LGBTQ people and everybody else, and why it matters, and why we matter, and why, no matter where you are in this moment, why you should care deeply.
All right, I already
Because
have
I've
another
never
sock account.
read
Haters
an
foiled again.
authoritarian movement that starts with one group of people and just stops it. That's not how our authoritarianism works, right? It's a response to the societal change and needing to systematically reconfigure power in that society.
What does it mean to systematically reconfigure power? Pop quiz for the chat. They just said that we needed to, and I'm sorry if my mic is like way louder than them. They just said we needed to systematically reconfigure power. What does that mean? Anyone? Anyone? Any ideas? Make socialisms? Yup. Equity. Equity is going to systematically reconfigure power. Exactly. Impose equity. Why are they imposing equity? To overthrow capitalism, to abolish capitalism. Imposing equity. Everyone, this is one of the ones we don't talk about that much, but just in case for new people, every single time you hear the word equity, equity means Marxism. We need to start being explicit about this. The goal of the left is to abolish capitalism, which they define as private property ownership, specifically. When they say private property, they mean your home, they mean your land, they mean your intellectual property, they mean your business, they mean any rental units that you rent out as a landlord, they mean your parental rights, and they mean your individual liberties. That's all the private property they want to abolish. What are they replacing that with? They're replacing it with equity. Equity and capitalism, or equity and private property ownership, cannot exist in the same place at the same time, because equity means a redistribution of resources in order to create equal outcomes. You can only create equalized outcomes where everyone is equally poor, as in a socialist society. You can only create equal outcomes when you remove people's ability to own private property. So I know people like to say, and listen, I fell into this trap for a long time. Equality is about equality of opportunity. Equity is about equality of outcomes. Yes, that's true. But go the next step. What does equality of outcomes mean? It means that you are not allowed to have any more than anyone else. Equity means sameness. It means everyone on the same level. No one is rich, no one is poor, in theory. So every single time you hear the term equity, whether that be in your kid's school, because they all have equity departments at the school district level, or in any organization you're working with, or in any ad, or in any presentation, every single time, it is a reference to overthrowing capitalism and abolishing private property. Does everyone here understand that? I just want to pause and make sure everyone's on the same page. If you don't understand what I just explained, please chat in and let me know. There's no harm in being a beginner. There's no shame in being a beginner, but you have to let us know if you don't understand something so we can make sure you do. It means everyone has the same resources. It means managed everything. Guys, when you hear the term managed capitalism, that means socialism. All right. Well done.
Change and needing to systematically reconfigure power in that society so that those people who feel threatened maintain that power. It's just true everywhere. I mean, look, it's like a classic example. It's not that hard. And one of the first places that Putin started was an attack on LGBT people. It is also why, for example, in almost every single speech that Putin gives to the country, he has an attack on trans people specifically. You would think that he had a bigger fish to fry than that, but he makes it a central talking point. But we don't want that to happen. So we're going to hear from everyone on this panel about how not to make it happen, coming from a variety of backgrounds and spaces. And my phone, like, I have to hit my passcodes. It's amazing that way. So first up is, I also asked them how they wanted me to introduce them, so I have to go to that. Okay, so first we have Ricardo Martinez, who is the CEO of Equality Texas, a statewide organization. Yeah, a statewide organization that is devoted to preserving the rights and dignity of all LGBT people in the state of Texas. We'll have a lot to say about how some of these big trends that I discussed are actually playing out in the space where you are, in the city where you are, in the state where you are, which I think is really essential. The next is Charlotte Clymer, who is the editor-in-chief of Charlotte's Web. Her GLAAD-nominated blog, which is now on Substack, that you can all find there. And Charlotte has a really extensive background, not only as a writer and a journalist, but also on the front lines of some of these issues, serving in rapid response capacities at HRC, which was not the easiest place to be over the past, whatever it is, almost 8 years. And I'm gonna test to see if I can get the pronunciation of the university right. Last but not least is Robin Merrill, who is professor at Willamette University and also works in HRC on policy. So please give them a round of applause. Okay, Ricardo, I'm wondering if you can tell us about how you see authoritarianism playing out in Texas. What are the things that most concern you about that? And what can we learn about the way in which organizations like yours in Texas are responding? What can be applied to other states who face similar forces as those here in Texas?
Can y'all hear me? We're good. Okay. So I'm often not the bearer of good news because I just tell people the reality of what the landscape feels like, what it is for LGBTQ people, especially here in Texas. So I want you to look at this picture and remember that regardless of what I tell you, the resistance in Texas is strong. In 2023, during the height of the legislative session, there were thousands of people that constantly showed up to the Capitol to defend the humanity and the rights of LGBTQ people. This is thousands of people marching towards the Capitol, and it's something that happened last year. So I know that.
Hang on.
Especially for those.
I don't want to see any of this bullshit in my chat. What do I mean by this? And I'm seeing this from a couple people. I'm seeing this from a couple people in the chat. Do you guys really think that owning the libs by trying to debunk them or calling them hypocrites is going to change anything? If you guys were going to defeat the left by owning the libs, you would have already done that probably decades ago. The fact of the matter is that every single time you guys do this shit, here is why I don't allow this debunking or the owning the lib stuff in my chat. Because it's all you assholes end up doing. No offense, Steve. I know you've been on the channel for a while, but like, this is all you guys do. You own the libs on Twitter. You own the libs in the chat. You own the libs on Facebook. You own the you high five each other when you come up with another way to own the libs or pointing out the hypocrisy of the libs, and then nothing ever changes, and these people keep winning and they keep gaining ground, and you keep wondering why. How could they possibly be winning when you just spend so much time owning the libs, bro? Because owning the libs is not going to solve the problem. Pointing out the hypocrisy is not going to solve the problem. You are winning no one over to your side when you do this stuff. You are just annoying people and driving them away. Nothing is changing. So can we just stop? Can we stop? Can we stop pretending that this is effective? Can we stop pretending that this is a good use of their time? Yeah. The meme wars in 2015 and 2017, they were great. Really funny. Did you win anything? How'd that work out for you? How did the memeing work out for you? Did you guys win a presidential election in 2020 from it? No. Moms for Liberty lost basically almost all of the school board races they ran, but the memes, bro, the memes. If you're not here to take this seriously, then don't be here. But the purpose of doing this is to listen to them and to learn what they're doing so you can try to effectively counter it.
You who are not residents in Texas, it might.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Shut the fuck up. No, you're not. This is where I start getting angry. And then conservatives like, oh my God, Carlin, you're so mean. You have a tone. No, you're not, bro. No, you're not. Don't fucking bullshit a bullshitter. Don't pull this shit in my fucking chat again. But we're just trying to understand what they mean by authoritarianism. No, you're not. We know what they mean. If you don't know what they mean, then shut the fuck up and listen and stick around for a while, and you will learn very quickly. What you're trying to do is own the libs so that you can feel personally, morally superior and nothing more.
Not internalize that there are people here who are fighting constantly because we're often counted out, right? Texas is counted out so frequently, but the reality is that there are thousands of people who are working to protect our democracy. So if it gets heavy, if you're listening to what we're saying, there is hope. There is always hope, and hold on to this, okay? But the reality is, authoritarianism shows up in this way, and I wanted to show you an image because I think it's incredibly important to show you just the marked increase in terms of the attack that LGBTQ people have been facing here in Texas. So if you look at the chart, in 2015, there were only 12 anti-LGBTQ bills that were filed here in Texas. I don't want to say that that's normal because that should be zero always, right? You see that it increases just a little bit in 2017, and then there's a regrouping period between 2017 and 2019 where the bathroom bill failed here in Texas in 2017, and our opposition had to regroup to figure out what is the best anti-LGBTQ message that we can proliferate across the country to attack and to erode the progress that has been made over the course of the last 50 years. Then, after an election year that was incredibly difficult in 2019, we see the result, right? In 2021, where 76 anti-LGBTQ bills were filed here in Texas. And at the time in 2021, that was accomplished over one regular session and 3 special sessions in Texas. That was a record in 2021 for the most anti-LGBTQ bills filed for any state legislature in the history of the United States in 2021. We We then set the record again in 2023, where there were over 140 anti-LGBTQ bills filed. But this wasn't done across 3 special sessions in a regular session. This was done in 1 regular session, which meant that from, and I think I remember this correctly, February 16th to the end of March, there was a hearing, an anti-LGBTQ bill during almost every single day. That type of increase, marked increase against us is one of the many ways that we are experiencing the hostile landscape that has developed here in Texas. But that's not the only way. The legislative attack is just one of the very many ways that we're experiencing.
All right, I haven't seen you in the chat before, so I will answer this question in good faith. Why don't these people realize communism never works? What they believe is that communism has never worked because it's never been tried in a fully industrialized country like the United States. That's why it failed in Cuba. That's why it failed in Venezuela. That's why it failed every other time. These people believe that the Russian Revolution is the greatest event in the history of humanity. They fully do believe that if they enact communism in the United States, that it will work this time because it will be in a fully industrialized nation. That is what they believe. There is nothing that you can do to convince them otherwise. There is no amount of owning the libs that you can do to convince them otherwise. There is no amount of data or talking about the 100 million deaths that are the result of communism. There is nothing you can do to convince them that they are wrong about this. So we need to accept the fact that these people truly do believe that real communism, real socialism has never been tried, because it has not been tried in an industrialized country like the United States, and they really do believe it's going to be different this time, and there is nothing that you can say or do to convince them otherwise. And no, you cannot tell them, go move to Cuba, go move to Venezuela. They're not going to do that because they want communism here. And the reason they want communism here is because they believe that if they can do it here, then they will be able to do it globally. Does everyone understand? I'm going to pause. I'm going to wait for people to ask questions about that. And we're going to get all of the owning the lib stuff out of our systems. That is what they believe. If you don't understand what I just said, speak up now or forever hold your peace. And everything that I just said too, I have them on video saying it. So I'm not making this up. I have them on video saying everything I just said to you.
Oppression here in Texas. The weaponization of state agencies is another way. One of the things that started here in Texas and began to proliferate across the country, notably in Florida. If you remember back in 2022, the Attorney General released a letter stating that caring for your trans child and providing them with the necessary health care that they need.
Yeah, you're welcome. And like I said, I don't recognize you, so I thought that it probably was an honest question. So and guys, if you're new to me, if you're new to watching socialism and leftist content with me, please ask questions. I don't mind repeating myself for new people. So I understand that this is mind-blowing because I've been down this road. So I appreciate the question. Stick around and we'll teach you a lot. Well, they don't view it as the definition. Excuse me. They do not view this as the definition of insanity because they really do believe that real socialism has never been tried. So they don't view it as the definition of insanity. And you have to understand that. They are in a cult. You are not going to be able to talk them out of this.
Thrive was considered child abuse. The governor then mandated the Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate mugging parents of trans kids as child abusers to disrupt their lives and really terrorize them. It's not the only time that the Attorney General or the governor has shown clear animus against LGBTQ Texans. It has been replicated more than 50 times since 2019. The infiltration of our safe spaces when you have all of this disinformation, when you embolden people to believe that it's okay to attack LGBTQ people, then you start seeing the infiltration of our safe spaces, right? So we often see people showing up to drag brunches, to our pride events, armed. And we're talking about white supremacists who are armed and who intend to do us harm.
White supremacists, that means capitalists.
Vigilantism and intimidation. We're talking, we exist everywhere, right? Number one, rural, suburban, urban, and Texas, we're everywhere. We're country and we're city, right? But those who are practicing courage in local communities are being intimidated by folks who are harassing them and discriminating against them all across the state. That's another way that it shows up. Radicalized parent groups is another way. Oftentimes the fight is not only in the legislature, it really comes down to a hyper-local context, which is through school boards. And you're seeing parents show.
Well, this is a really great point that some people are making in the chat. So, yes, do we all believe that communism, socialism is insane? Yeah, of course we do. But they believe that capitalism is insane. They believe that capitalism is responsible for death and suffering and oppression. They really do believe it. They believe that if we get rid of capitalism, we're going to fix all societal problems, that we're going to fix all crime, that we're going to fix the climate change problem, that we're going to fix racism, that we're going to fix sexism. They believe that everyone will be happier. They believe everyone will have more. They believe that everyone will have better access to resources. They believe that capitalism is just as insane as we believe socialism is. So really think about that. As insane as you think they think you are equally as insane. They believe that communism is the natural state of humanity. Literally. They believe everything that has been imposed on us by capitalism is just a social construct. This is why they say, we're literally dying. They really do believe that. And they believe capitalism is what's killing them.
Championing anti-LGBTQ policies, mostly anti-trans policies, that make conditions for LGBTQ young people that attend K-12 public schools really, really dangerous. And this is all facilitated because of this disinformation campaign, right? And this is one of the formulas that they use that have worked time and time again over the course of the last 50 years. They take something about our community that the majority of Americans wouldn't necessarily understand, insert threat. They take that knowledge gap and they insert disinformation and misinformation, right? In hopes that misinformation and disinformation causes hysteria. And when they achieve the hysteria, they use that hysteria as a reason to legislate against us. And then the discrimination happens and it's perpetuated. But one of the things that I want to underscore that I think Mara said really well is that these are recycling tactics that have been used time and time again. So we compare, this is one of my favorite Instagram handles, so follow them, you should. Because it simply shows you that the 1970s homophobia language is the same language that is being used to uplift 2020's transphobia. So I just want folks to remember that this is recycled, it is effective, and there are ways that we can push back, right? But all of this combined,
hang on,
the 7 bills that passed last year.
Hang on. Again, I need to emphasize this. Their definition of capitalism is not the same as your definition of capitalism. Just like you can't convince them that real socialism has never been tried, you cannot convince them about your definition of capitalism. You might not like capitalism. You might think it's crony capitalism. You might think it's corrupt. You might say, we don't really have free markets. We don't live in a full capitalist society. But none of that makes any difference because their definition of capitalism is explicitly private property ownership. That is what they mean. Your ability to own a home, land, run a business, intellectual property, own a rental unit that you rent out as a landlord or an Airbnb, your parental rights count as private property, your individual liberties count as private property. Nothing else beyond that matters. So saying we don't live in a fully capitalist society does not matter. Not relevant. Not relevant at all. And in fact, every time you guys bring this up, and I know this is not your fault, I think you're relatively new here, but every single time you guys bring up other aspects of it where you're like, well, it's personal versus private property. No, it's not. Nope. Nope. Don't go down that road. The crony capitalism is bad. Okay, fine. Not the conversation you want to have with a socialist. They're not defining it the same way that you define it. Saying we don't have free markets. Okay, fine. That's not the conversation you have with a socialist. That is not how they define it. Okay? Their goal is to take away your ability to own a home, to own land, to own a business, to have parental rights over your kids, to have a rental property, to have intellectual property, to have individual liberties. They want to take all that away from you. Anything that deviates from the definition of capitalism as private property ownership is counterproductive. Does everyone understand that? I don't mean to be hard on you. It's not a personal thing. I just really want to make sure that people understand this. I hope this is not a stupid question, but are these people purely power hungry, driven, using the idea? No. No. That is a conservative talking point. I understand why you're asking that. That is a conservative talking point. That is not real. They believe every single thing that I'm telling you they believe. This is not to gain more power. Well, I mean, they do gain power. Like, let me rephrase. They do want power over the institutions, but the reason they want power over the institutions is to push everything towards Marxism. This is not a personal thing with them. They are part of a collectivist Borg. This is part of a hive mind. This is not about individual. These people are not mentally ill. They're not narcissists. They're not any of those things. They believe every single thing that they say. In order to understand the left, you have to throw out every single thing that conservative influencers have taught you about what the left is. Because I know where this is coming from. I don't know who specifically, but I know where this is coming from, and this is not real. Let me just scroll through the chat. Well, it's not about forgetting logic. It's about understanding that they have different definitions and they have different values and they have different beliefs. The left is extremely consistent. They are extremely predictable, but in order to predict what they're going to say and what they're going to do and to understand why they're doing it, you have to understand their perspective of the world. Their perspective of the world is different than your perspective. It's different from my perspective. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes and understand that they are true believers of this ideology. And so you will see the consistency when you understand the ideology. But if you do not yet see the consistency, it is because you do not yet understand the ideology, and you just need to keep learning. I'm not saying any shade, Kristen. I adore you. You're a great supporter. I appreciate you. I'm just saying that if you don't see the consistency in the ideology yet, you need to keep coming to streams and learning, because the moment that you see the consistency is when you've got it. And it takes a while for people to get it sometimes. It takes a long ass time to do this. What we're doing is hard. Nope, this is not real. This is a conservative talking point. No. If you perceive them as if they're so immature and ignorant, then why are you losing so badly to them? If they're mentally ill, why are you losing so badly to a bunch of mentally ill people? Why is the right losing so badly to a bunch of immature, ignorant children? Why are you getting your asses kicked up and down the playing field every single day for years, for decades on end, if they're so ignorant and immature and mentally ill and crazy? Why are you losing to them so badly? Because they're not. They're not. They know what they're doing. They have a vision for what they're doing. They have a strategy they've been effectively implementing for over a century. And the reason you guys keep losing to them is because you treat them as though they are immature and ignorant and mentally ill. They're not. They're highly effective. The results speak for themselves. They own your children. They own your children. That's not mental illness. That's effectiveness. Jim, we covered this earlier, but so maybe you want to rewind and catch that part of the stream. This does not matter. They do not care. You will never convince them of this. All right, let's keep going.
Of the 141 that were introduced, they create conditions that make accessing healthcare more dangerous, navigate daily life more dangerous. But there are things that we can do. As far as equality fixes, we know that we don't have institutional power, right? We don't have the governorship, we don't have a lieutenant governor who is.
That's not institutional power, that's political power.
Supportive of our issues. We don't have a majority in the House or the Senate, but we do have the people. 75% of Texans believe that discrimination against LGBTQ people is wrong. But we're fighting apathy at the same time that we are fighting what's happening at the Capitol. People aren't feeling this as urgently as they need to, right? And what you can do is, number one, stop racism, stop homophobia, stop transphobia in your daily lives, right? Number two, you get to plug into the work when and if you can, and when and if you have time. I know that advocacy is a journey, and we're all in very different spaces within that journey, right? Education is incredibly important, so if you don't necessarily know much about the issues and what we're fighting, education is where you begin following organizations like ours.
No, this is not correct. And this is why I tell you to stop doing the owning the libs bullshit and actually listen. This is not correct. This is a conservative narrative that is not true. They not only have institutional power on a national level, they have institutional power on a local level in every single fucking state. They own every single public school district in the country. They own the public schools in Florida. They own the public schools in Texas. They own the public schools in Oklahoma. They own the public schools in Idaho. They own the public schools in Iowa. They own the public schools in West Virginia. They own the public schools in every single district in the country. I can go onto any public school website at the district level right now. You can name me any single school district in the country, and I will tell you how they're teaching Marxism to your kids within 15 fucking minutes of going on that website. And I know because I reverse engineered how to do it. Anyone who believes that they do not have institutional power at a local level is being lied to. And it's not just the public schools. The public schools are just the biggest problem. So no, wrong, incorrect. Come to more streams. Actually listen. Learn a thing or two. Yep, they also own a lot of private schools. That is absolutely correct. 100%. And charter schools. Do you not understand that school? Holy shit, bro. If you want to know why your side is losing so badly, you need to look in the mirror, Steve. You have watched my channel for a long time, bro. There is no excuse. There is no excuse for the level of ignorance that you are expressing right now. This is why, guys, listen, I don't mind new people coming onto my channel and asking questions. I don't mind new people asking basic questions. We were all a beginner once. There was a time I was a beginner too. I'm willing to answer any good faith questions being asked. The reason I'm being hard on Steve is Steve has watched my content for over a year and a fucking half, at least, and he has learned nothing. And this is where I start to get pissed off, because I don't know why people are showing up to these streams if you are not here to learn. I have no effing idea. If you are not here to learn, this is not the place for you. Go over to the Daily Wire or the Blaze or Steven Crowder or any other conservative like grifting op, and they will take your money and they will tell you all the nice things that you really want to hear. You'll learn nothing, but they'll make you feel good. But I don't know what you're doing here, bro. You've been around long enough to know a lot better than this.
The Transgender Education Network of Texas, the Texas Freedom Network, ACLU of Texas, HRC, and Rent Legal, all those organizations that are championing LGBTQ equality here.
And the reason I'm hard on people is because you guys, like, if people don't start understanding this, I don't even know what to say. Like, I think we're pretty much already fucked. But if people don't start taking this seriously, I don't have kids. I'm not like, your kids are going to suffer. Mine, I don't have kids that are going to suffer when these people inevitably win. What needs to happen for people to start taking this seriously? Do you need to get your kids taken away? Because I can introduce you to people who've gotten their kids taken away. Do you need to get your kids transed by the schools? Because I can introduce you to people who have had their kids brainwashed by the schools. What specifically needs to happen for people to start taking this seriously?
It's important, and then following their actions.
Hang on.
Right? And encouraging.
Got a super chat from Rottweiler. Apologies for the stopping and starting. Rottweiler says, Marxists do the think globally, act locally. That's how they own the K through 12 schools, the universities, the teachers' unions, the medical institutions, the local legislatures. Oh my fucking God. That's exactly right. Exactly right.
For folks to really pay attention and to vote because it matters. It matters because the intention here is to shrink civic engagement spaces so that people feel so they don't feel empowered, where they stay home and do nothing and continue to perpetuate the sense of inertia that really allows them their overall intent to really actualize. So mobilize, educate, engage. I'll stop there.
One of the things that I wanted to ask the audience before going to Charlotte next is, raise your hands at the following numbers. How many of you think that, just trans people, how many of you think trans people are 10% of the population? How many people think
10%?
Trans people are 5% of the population? In one person. 2, 3, 4. How many people think trans people are 1% of the population? Okay. How many people think that trans people are less than 1% of the population? Those are the questions. So, on a good day, a really, really high counting day, trans people are almost 1%. It's either 0.8 or 1% of the population. But you see the number of bills in Texas alone dealing with this relatively small group of people, and nationwide, it's 400 bills. It would seem to me that we need 400 bills on clean water, we need 400 bills on housing. Like, there are a lot of other things that impact people, but I think it's the reason why you can, like, Ricardo is framing this as an attack is because when you place this much energy into a small number of people, it can't be other than that. There's no problem that you're actually solving for. And the volume kind of tells you.
Yep. It's the easiest thing in the world to find how they're teaching Marxism on school websites, because on like 90% plus of school district websites, and everyone can do an experiment, no matter what school district you're in, whether you have kids or you don't, go on to the district website, not the individual school website, the district website. Go into the search bar and type in equity and just see what comes up. You're going to find equity departments. You're going to find equity programs. You're going to find equity in the curriculum. You're going to find professional development presentations about equity. This is like within minutes, you can start finding stuff. Now, some school districts have renamed their equity offices to other things. Sometimes you have to dig around a little bit. Sometimes you have to like go down the rabbit hole where you get into like anti-racism or other things. Sometimes the language is different, but in 90% of school district websites, all you need to do to find out how they're teaching Marxism to your kids is to go on the website and type in equity and then read every single thing that comes up. Every single thing, even if it's boring. Read everything. Go down every rabbit hole. Look at your kids' teachers' social media. Like look at all the presentations that the teachers are getting for professional development. This is all on the school district website. You don't have to take my word for it. Just look at it for yourself.
I think the other really important thing is that we know when Ricardo's saying that they do this, they do that. The days actually have a name, and we actually know who they are, right? It's actually not a mystery. One of the things that we have at Translash is an investigative unit that produces a podcast called The Anti-Trans Hate Machine, A Plot Against Equality, which looked into the people, the money, the organizations, the politicians, the media network that's driving this. And the thing that you should know is that none of this is an accident. None of this is the conversation that we're having about trans people and LGBT people is designed to look as if it is organic, but it's anything but. It is a structured campaign that is a result of years of focus group testing and planning on their part to set up the time and the conversation in the way that it's happening. So when we say the they, it's not, how people say when they are putting tolls on the roads, who's the they? The they is the invisible they. The they we use as a plural in this case because we actually know who they are, and there are a lot of them. Charlotte, given where you sit and the fact that you, as a writer, observe the big trends that are happening, and at HRC we're on the front lines when the Trump administration began to weaponize many of these.
Yeah, I appreciate this, Human Centipede. Before I came here, I thought we could have just avoid the libs of TikTok teachers with blue hair and be okay. But knowing how they talk now, you can see it in the teachers that post like regular people. That is exactly the point. Guys, this is why you have to learn how to speak socialist. Right here. If you have not taken my How to Speak Socialist class yet, I'm going to be doing another live version of it coming up very soon. I'm going to be making announcements about that. So pay attention to the Substack for that. We're also going to be doing an upper level version of it where we're going to go more in depth than we do in the first round class that I've done a couple of times. But what I want people to hear is you might think you understand the language because you've seen libs of TikTok or like similar outrage porn. You might think you understand what socialism is because you read a book by Mark Levin, but you don't. Because you don't know how it's showing up in the real world. And I don't want anyone to feel bad about that. Again, this is, you don't know what you don't know, but once you learn how to speak the language, you see it showing up everywhere. In places that you never thought it was before. And when you start being able to see how it shows up everywhere, you are going to be in a better position to deal with the problem at that point. That's why we sit here for hours a week and learn this stuff. Because once you see it, and there are many people in the chat that can testify to this, you don't know what you don't know until you know. And once you see it, and once you get it, and once the language is internalized, and I would like everyone in the chat to chat in some testimonials to this effect. Once you see it, You understand the problem on a whole other level. Once you see it and hear it, you cannot unsee it or hear it. I've already explained what the motivation is. They believe that this is going to be better. They have fundamentally different values than you do. If you go to my Substack, go to the Woke Mind section, and I have articles written about this. Their motivation is they believe that this is the best way to organize society. Period. End of discussion. Yeah, I'm gonna do this at some point on the list. Reagan says there is a moment where it all clicks, and then you know what you're up against. Ignorance sure was bliss. Like, holy shit, it's everywhere. It is everywhere. Once you know, you're like Rowdy Roddy Piper and They Live with the Glasses. Once you know, you realize that the conservative influencers are only concerned about views and selling products to the. This is one of the worst parts of this, guys. I have gotten blocked by more conservative influencers since I started teaching people this language than I ever did before this. And I've been ragging on conservatives for years. I have made shitting on conservatives into an art form. You know when conservative influencers really started blocking me and really started shit talking me? When I started teaching people the language. Because then you see how much they don't know, and you see how much they don't give a flying F. And you see what con artists they all are. And they never cared in the first place. They just wanted your money. They just wanted to be famous. They just wanted to build a brand. It's one of the worst parts of all of this. You learn the people who you thought were smart are actually not. Once you know the language, you see that progressives to conservatives are the target. Yep. It's been really helpful to explain to family what's going on with their kids in schools. Their influencers aren't telling them. Guys, part of the reason we do this, and part of what I hope people take away from this, is you have the ability to go and explain to your friends and family what's happening. I can't reach everyone. I can't teach everyone. But if I teach you, then you can teach them, because the conservative influencers are not doing it. They are failing in their one and only job of informing people because they themselves are not informed. So we have to help each other. It has helped me to see who they really are, even between the Democrats who don't understand. The saddest part is they don't understand. That's exactly right. Kyle says, yeah, I've been able to peg a person in seconds. It could be a body language vibe followed by picking up on a word they use. And I'm right more times than I'm not when my radar is up. Guys, you will start, when you learn how to speak leftist, when you learn how to speak socialist, you start picking up on different, they have patterns to how they speak. They have patterns to their language that is unique to them. This is like forensic linguistics. They have language that only they use. They have patterns of speech that they only use. You can even see them moving their bodies in the same way when they all start rocking together, because they do that. It's like a cult. And then when you see that show up in the real world, you're like, holy shit. I've noticed Tim has been yapping about commies in Tim has been yapping about the radical revolutionary communists in New York. Oh, isn't that cute? But he is so far behind and doesn't understand. I can't imagine why. Once you learn the language, to quote communists, they are everywhere. They're your neighbor, your teacher, your construction worker, your politician, and so on and so forth. Yep. Once you learn, you realize that politicians are not the answer. Isn't that the truth? Conservative influencers. XYZ is degenerate. Groomers. Calendars bad. Immature mentally ill teens. Ban anime and video games. Buy my book. Yeah. And all the time, they are not actually solving the problem. Cool. Let's keep going.
Rules, policies, and even before then, kind of the long tail fight. I'm wondering what strikes you about what you're seeing and the way in which it increasingly threatens democracy?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you all for being here for this session. I know you could be so many other places because this is such a great festival and conference. We're really happy that you're here to learn about the fight ahead. I am from the great city of Texas. I grew up here in Austin. And if you had told me when I was 14 that I'd be in South by Southwest talking to such an illustrious company about LGBTQ equality, I'm not sure I would have believed you. So it's really, really great that we're here to have this conversation. Rob and I worked together for the better part of 3 years at the Human Rights Campaign during the Trump administration. And I think the biggest difference is during that time, the Republican Party, Donald Trump, and really the conservative movement overall was a lot more reticent about their goals. They weren't so open about wanting to do what they did. And the big difference now is that they are very much saying the quiet part out loud. Just from the avalanche of legislation that's happening across the country to the Heritage Project or Heritage Foundation that just released the 2025 project. Rob's going to talk more about that. But it's just really out in the open. They are not being shy at all about with what they want to do. And what's frustrating is that so much of the political media either stays exhausted or desensitized to the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that's coming from the Republican Party. On day one, if Trump were to win, on day one, the amount of executive orders that would come down affecting our community are numerous. First of all,
Here's hoping.
Military ban will be reinstated within the first hour after it takes the oath of office, guaranteed. Guaranteed. Every LGBTQ mention on every government website will be wiped away. That's what they did, by the way, when he was first elected. They'll absolutely do it the second time around. And that's not
Here's hoping.
the worst part. We're going to see legislation that will probably, I would say, legalize conversion therapy and prevent it from being decriminalized anywhere in the country. We'll definitely see efforts to ban trans people from using the restrooms of our choice, spaces, or being having basic protections in the workplace, despite the Supreme Court's ruling before. And that's another thing too, and I think this is really, really important to get across. Same-sex marriage as a momentous moment.
Oh, here we go.
As much as it was a landmark in our history, it really obfuscated the overall struggle of LGBTQ people. There are two rights that we have at the federal level, marriage and employment protections. Both of those are Supreme Court rulings. And both of those were made under Supreme Court that was very different than it does now. There are votes on the court to overturn same-sex marriage. And I think that there are some folks who disagree with me on this respectfully, and that's fine. I do believe same-sex marriage will be overturned in the next 5 years. That is my personal opinion. I believe it's going to happen. And when it does happen, what we're going to see is immediately we're going to see a lot of families whose lives are affected very directly. And what's worse is that this is not a theoretical.
Okay, I want people to pay attention to the fact that they're talking about the fact that they think that same-sex marriage is going to be overturned. The reason they're talking about this and they're using this is because they know, first of all, that there are conservative politicians who are talking about this. It was like one of the first things they started talking about after Roe v. Wade got repealed. They were like, oh, now we get to do same-sex marriage. I think that was Ted Cruz, right? That's one of the dumbest things in the world that any conservative can talk about right now. One of the dumbest effing things in the world. The goal of the right needs to be getting as many votes as possible. If you don't get votes, you don't win elections. You are not going to get votes by championing the repeal of same-sex marriage. And anyone who's like, but I'm a Christian, I don't give a flying fuck. You are allowed to have your personal values. You are allowed to hate gay people as much as you want to hate gay people. You are allowed to say, I don't agree with their lifestyle. You're allowed to do all of that. But when you cross the line into advocating for legislation based on your religious beliefs that are going to guarantee that you lose every single election for the rest of your natural lives, that is when you have gone too goddamn far. If you do not win an election, and I quite frankly do not believe you're going to win in November, I do not believe you're going to win at all, because you've driven away too many voters. Every single time you guys talk about gay marriage, you drive away voters. You drive away women. You drive away independents. You drive away disaffected lefties like me. No, there's only like at maximum 30% of the country that agrees with you on gay marriage. And then you will lose the election and you will scream election fraud when it wasn't election fraud. It was your own stupidity for talking about issues you shouldn't have been talking about. No one gives a flying F about gay marriage except for conservative Christians and lefties who are going to use it against you to win elections. Do you guys remember when you lost the 2022 midterms? Do you guys remember when you were planning that big red wave in 2022 because, oh my God, Biden sucks so badly, they have to vote for us. The left sucks so badly, they have to vote for us. And then magically, you barely eked out a majority in the House and lost everything else. And the reason you lost everything else was the repeal of Roe v. Wade, which the conservative pundits guaranteed everyone wasn't going to matter. I was one of like 3 people who stood up and said, you guys just lost the midterms when that happened. Because all the conservative pundits like, no one cares about abortion. No one's voting on abortion. And then the midterms came. And the Democrats had raised millions and millions and millions of dollars and rallied voters all over the country based purely on the repeal of Roe v. Wade. If you want a repeat of the 2022 midterms, go get on the gay marriage bandwagon, because what you're seeing happen at South by Southwest is they are using your own words against you in order to raise money, in order to register young voters, in order to win in 2024. And hang on. God damn. I'm on a good rant. And when you scream election fraud, they're going to laugh and say, no, it was gay marriage all along. You lost yourself.
It's not a hypothetical. Republicans are saying they want to do this. Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas and Supreme Court have been very open about the fact they want to overturn same-sex marriage. That they want to do away with non-discrimination protections across the board. I want to end with this, and I think this is really important. When you get a few drinks into some progressives who are not LGBTQ, and you really start talking to them, they will let on that they believe that at least we've made permanent progress. And what they mean by that is that essentially white gay cis men are now protected, right? White gay cis men are not going to face discrimination. They've been assimilated into the larger societal framework. Folks, no one is safe. No one is safe. I don't care who it is. No one is safe.
No one is safe, guys. This is what they're...
Being a man will not save you. Your checkbook will not save you. It might delay the inevitable, but it's not going to save you. Being a military veteran and gay is not going to save you.
This is what they're telling their audience, guys. If you're gay, they're going to take your marriage away, and there's nothing that can save you. Being a gay man will not save you. Being in the military will not save you. Being rich will not save you. They're going to take away your right to get married. This isn't about... I hope people understand this. This is not about the left attacking conservatives right here. There's no conservatives in the room. This is about the left using the retardia of the average conservative politician in order to rally their own base, to raise money, and to get them activated so they can do more activism. This is not about conservatives. The left is not concerned about you. They're concerned about raising money and rallying their base, and they will use your words against you in order to do that. Does that make sense to everyone?
I go to church. I go to church myself every Sunday. It's not going to save you. Jesus might save you. No, but Jesus is not going to save you from the policies of the Republican Party. It's not going to happen. So if you have relatives or friends, or you yourself are a white gay cis man and you believe that they are perfectly protected, you are sorely mistaken. They are not stopping with trans people. They are not stopping with abortion. They are not stopping with anti-blackness. They are not stopping with anti-immigrant policies. They're not stopping with anti-Muslim policies. Not stopping with anti-Semitism. They are not stopping with any of these things. They are going after everyone who doesn't look like them, think like them, and be like them. We have to understand that all of these things are linked together. This struggle is not going away. We have to figure out how to work together.
Revolution.
And fight this behemoth that's coming our way. We can do it. We can do it, but we have to know the threat that's coming. We can't stick our heads in the sand and pretend that it's just going to go away if we wish it away.
Well, yeah, because he said your whiteness won't save you because he's talking about, okay, so basically what they're talking about is that they believe that like white gay men have assimilated to homonormativity, and whiteness of course means capitalism, but it also like in this case what it's a reference to is normativity. They're referencing like gay couples who just want to be gay couples and just want to be left alone as being gay couples, and they're basically saying just because you're relatively normal, don't think you're going to be safe. They're going to try to take your marriage away too. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it.
I'm really glad to be here, and it's so great that you all are here to, learn more about this. But, when you go back home tonight, or when you're at your next family gathering, you hear your family member who, bless their heart, is a very misinformed moderate. It is your duty to have a heart-to-heart conversation with them and let them know the Republican Party is coming after all of us, and we need to recognize that threat and address it directly.
I think two things are really important, and it kind of sets up the question for Robin. One, I think the reality is, and this is just a fact, this isn't conjecture anymore. The Republican Party is the Christian nationalist authoritarian party. There is no longer a right wing of the Republican Party, the right wing are the party.
Well,
we have to disabuse ourselves that we're using a term that no longer represents the party that most people, and everyone in this room actually, at some point grew up with, and still think exists. That party is gone. When you have the Speaker of the House, who is a Christian nationalist and a dominionist, which is kind of an extreme view of Christianity, the Speaker, you have a person who says that on day one they're going to be a dictator, whose policies have been guided by what we're going to talk about, Project 25 at the Heritage Foundation, which is an organization devoted to injecting Christian policy into the federal government. I think it's just really important for us to name that the Republican Party is a Christian nationalist authoritarian party in 2024. It's plain as day. I think the other thing that's really important here is that we saw in the Trump administration just how quickly and systematically over basically a 2-year period, they turned the entire federal government on trans people through executive orders dealing with the military and health and education and housing, because they didn't want there to be equal access to housing and a successful lawsuit. And so things can change really quickly. And so within this, if the federal government is shaky, if the states are shaky, if the Congress is shaky, just this year we began to have votes in the Congress that are anti-trans as a condition for her to support the new speaker, Marjorie Taylor Greene, demanded that anti-trans bills be on the floor, and they were, and they were debated.
Good for Marjorie.
And so if the states are can be shaky, And federal government, depending on who's there, can be weaponized overnight, and the Congress the same thing. That then leaves one last possible bulwark against all of this, and that's the courts. And Robin, you have experience in dealing with the analysis of the court system and how we have used it to advance or shore up rights, but then maybe there's some dangers of that as well as speaking about what could happen through Project 25, which would be a combination of these executive orders and laws that one has.
Yeah, I think I share Charlotte's concern about the future trajectory of the court. And this is not a place that I was at even 3 years ago. I'll project more. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I have to talk to my hands a lot, so this is why I have to go up. I think I now am more concerned about the status of the court, and I think that the repeal of Roe v. Wade is absolutely just the start of what this court is going to do, and what they were brought on to do, and what was part of, I think, a very strategic plan for the past 30 years to remake the courts, to undo Roe v. Wade, but also to...
Okay, this is a good question from Taryn. Thank you for asking. Is it possible that the trans issue might hurt them more than help in the long run? Is the trans issue code for something else? Okay, pop quiz for the chat. What is the difference between trans and queer? What is the difference between trans and queer? Because this is another thing that conservative influencers have confused their audience about. What is the difference between trans and queer? Dragontail says they've co-opted the trans issue. That's exactly right. Trans people believe in the gender binary. They believe men and women are a thing. Queer does not believe in the gender binary. Queer wants to abolish the gender binary. Trans means to transition gender from man to woman or woman to man. Queer means to transcend or transform gender to go above the binary. This is why we're seeing so many presentations saying, break the binary, break the binary, break the binary. It's not a Gnostic sex cult. They want to abolish the gender binary. Trans upholds the binary. Queer wants to abolish the gender binary. That's queer. Trans is transgender unless they say transform. And queer is a far left political ideology. This is the answer I was going for. The left doesn't care about trans people. The left hates trans people that are conservatives. The left doesn't support all trans people. What the left wants is to co-opt the issue to use it to advance a far left political ideology, and that far left political ideology is queer. Queer is a far left political ideology that seeks to abolish the gender binary. Queer is political. Queer wants to destroy the binary because it will destroy capitalism. Trans supports the binary. Queer is political. Queer is a political identity. Steve is back in the saddle again. Liz says queer is a political stance. Queer is a far left political ideology. Trans upholds the gender binary. Trans means transition. Queer means against normativity. All normativity. Normativity means capitalism, but it could mean whiteness. It could mean the patriarchy. It could mean any number of things. Trans can become normative and queer cannot. Transgender is the binary of genderqueer as an ideology. You can be queer and be a cis, white, straight man. The only thing required to be queer is to say that you are queer. Queer is political. It is anti-normative. Trans is consistent with the gender binary. Queer is opposed to it. Queer is a political stance to destroy the gender binary. Trans is just personal. Trans generally upholds the binary. Queer goes against it. All right, so lots of great answers in the chat. I want to go back to the original question. Is it possible that the trans issue might hurt them more than help them in the long run? No. Because they're co-opting the trans issue. They don't care about the trans issue. They're co-opting it to advance queer, which is a far left political ideology. In fact, most people on the political right have no idea that there's a difference between trans and queer. No idea. When the trans ideology when the trans, I shouldn't call trans an ideology. Trans is not an ideology. I misspoke. When the trans issue no longer helps them to advance their political ideology, they will drop it and they will move on to something else. And it will be like it never happened. But the trans issue really does help them a lot. And so I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. But it's not going to hurt them in the long run. They're just going to drop it, move on to something else. Use and dispense. And then use and dispense and use and dispense and use and dispense again.
Incorporate this traditional family moral values that we saw come up with Reagan now in modern America. We are employing really outmoded methods of interpretation to 2024 problems. You know, we're citing founders from 1789 who incorporated slavery into the Constitution, right? The Constitution and the framers of 1789 were not a liberatory, did not have a liberatory idea. And we're going to have the same result when we apply that mentality to modern 2024 problems. I think that with that, there is so much power in naming what is happening. And I'm so glad you brought up the 1930s. And I think for a long time, I hesitated to say the word authoritarian and fascist in the context of the United States. But we are there.
Wait,
and
what?
Looking at,
did you guys hear that? She said there was a long time I resisted to the urge to use authoritarian and fascist in the context of the United States. Why is this queer activist speaking at South by Southwest 2024 saying, there's a long time that I just didn't want to use the words authoritarian or fascist in the context of referring to the United States? What is she really saying? What's authoritarian? What's fascist? What is that a reference to? She's saying capitalism. They believe the United States is a fascist country because it's grounded in capitalism. That's what she's saying. It means capitalism. That's what fascism means, because capitalism is fascist. It means capitalism. Fascism is capitalism. She's calling the U.S. capitalist. Exactly. Let's see if she actually says the magic words.
Hesitated to say the words authoritarian and fascist in the context of the United States. But we are there. And I think looking at the way just across history, LGBT people, but gender non-conforming people and women and immigrants and people of color have been really brutalized and used as scapegoats by authoritarian governments.
Capitalist.
And they use the same language. And this is why I wanted to have clips, because the same language that we see in Germany in the 1930s around erosion of family values and the degradation of society, and all of this is linked to fill in the blank. They're using the same playbook. So let's see. I hope this was worth your wait. If it's not, you're going to go and run out screen. No? I'm printing. It's a big deal. No.
Damn you, Tim Cook. There you go.
So I can also do a dramatic reenactment. So what Governor Stitt is saying, and again, I'm from Oklahoma, is saying so this has been signing in an executive order designed to protect women in Oklahoma, right? And that's how it's being sold. But the language he's using is actually about transgender people and children, right? This is what this is about, right? It is about next benefit. And instead, what he's saying is, this executive order is going to stop the erosion of our society and preserve the very essence of being a woman, right? And we're putting it into state policy, right? And I think the big part of this is that it is, just as Amara was saying, this is based on fear, whether that fear is real or manufactured, right? And regardless of whether that fear is insecurity around economics or just fear of the future and of change. What we have seen in the 1930s in Germany, and we see now, is that when rights are expanded, when opportunity and access to opportunity increases, for people who have not traditionally had it, that is when the majority population starts to say, ugh, right? I am afraid of this. And when you are afraid of someone, then the politicians can look at you and people become problems. And when people become problems, they become really convenient responses to real problems like inflation and unemployment and war, right? And the failed war on drugs. Picking on a trans kid in Oklahoma is a lot easier than responding to the fentanyl problem, right? It's a lot easier. And it also, from an individual and community perspective, pushes us and our lives further from the community and political life, right? We are distanced and we're alienated from.
Take this conservative talking point bullshit right out of my chat right now. Honest to God. Honest to God. One of the very first things the left did after Joe Biden took office was stop construction on the wall and get rid of all of the executive orders around immigration. That was right after he took office. So no, this isn't true. The left has been pushing the immigration issue constantly for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades, perpetually. Why are they pushing it? Because they believe that borders are an aspect of capitalism and they're using it to destabilize the system and overwhelm it. No conservative bullshit talking points allowed in my chat anymore. I swear to God, it's too mind-numbing to me. It's like, guys, please think for your, do not come in here and just regurgitate what your influencers are telling you. Don't do it. I can sniff through that shit because I know what your influencers are saying and I know what's real and I know what shows up here and when it shows up. And it's just like, I expect better of people in my audience. The left does not believe in borders.
actually
I literally have a sticker that I got back when I was still on the left at like, where the fuck did I get it? On like some business trip. I think I was I was in Southern California. I was in Orange County, California. And I like went into a gift shop or something, and they had a gift certificate, and or not gifts, like they had a whole bunch of stickers, and so I got some stickers from them, and like one of them said, "There's no such thing as illegal." Like, to say that they're only pushing this stuff when they want votes, they push this stuff literally all the time, literally all the time.
being able to exercise our political power when we are over and over and over dehumanized and pushed away. And I think what's important is that fascists are exploiting pre-existing hate and bias. This isn't new in the United States, right? Trump didn't invent racism. He exploits it. And that is the problem, because when you give them room to exploit pre-existing hate and bias, and you validate it, and you get everyone together in a stadium and you say it's okay to say these things. In fact, it is your patriotic duty. Then everybody else becomes a threat to national security and health. And then we can undermine reproductive rights. Then we can undermine affirmative action.
True.
Then we can undo same-sex marriage.
True.
Then we can pick our next benefit, right? Because we've given you space to do that. So I think, as dark as it is, and as darker as it might become, I think there are things that we can do, both as a community and personally, by just living. Because I think one of the things that I have sort of come to terms with is the extent that what the far-right Republican Party wants is conformity and an easy sort of populist to push around, right? One of the most radical things that you can do is to be your goddamn self. Right?
Oh. T-Bone. T-Bone just went through it. T-Bone just watched the dissociative disorder cult stream. Welcome, T-Bone. This is going to be a lot easier. But if you guys haven't seen the stream I did the other day on the multiple personality disorder stuff, it's crazy. And my husband is here bringing me water. Thank you, Victor. I have the best husband in the world. Everyone say hi to Victor. All right.
That is an action that we can take every day. And for those folks, like in my home state of Oklahoma, where it is not safe to come out, I think part of it is still holding on to what makes you you. Even if it is not safe for you to come out, you can still maintain and say, I am worth it. And that can be an anti-fascist movement as well. So, thank you. I'm sorry the video didn't work, but I hope that it was, I reenacted it and gave it
One of the things that's important, I think, is that, we can lose sight by talking about the trends that are happening and the various laws that are taking place, the way that institutions are responding. But I think that we always have to keep in mind as well that, like, this is an issue of life and death, right? The anti-trans climate.
We're literally dying.
In Oklahoma.
Literally dying.
They deny people health care. They've had clinics dealing with trans youth shut down. Such conflicts and a great many other things directly contributed to the murder of next benefits. We know that in states where, even where these laws are just discussed, that the calls to suicide hotlines by trans and queer kids shoot through the roof. But just the conversation can be.
Hasn't it come out that Next Benedict died of an overdose? So Next Benedict wasn't murdered. Next Benedict died of an overdose.
to violence in all its forms. And a South Carolina legislator who introduced an anti-trans bill in that state told me that that is also part of the plan. That is to say that they know that the conversation itself can have an impact, even if the bills don't pass. They're very aware of this. They're very aware of this violence. And all over, here, there are stories, there are people that I have talked to who have to decide what their families are going to do when these anti-trans laws are passed. Are they going to have to move? One case where I know where they split the family. They lived in a school district in a place where they had a child with special needs, great school for child with special needs. So one parent decided to stay with that kid, the other person decides to move to another state with their trans teenager so that they can get gender affirming care. There are cases in Florida and people in Florida that I know where families have done the same thing. So they've had to stay in the state because of work, but then transfer custody to the mother sister of a 16-year-old trans girl so that she could be in a place where she could get the healthcare that she needed and be safe. And this is America.
Do not pull this shit. Steve, I swear to fucking Steve, you're getting a timeout again. Like, seriously. Do not pull this shit in my chat. I'm not gonna get put on some fucking list because you guys want to be funny.
This is not some, speculative fiction fantasy. This is America right now.
He was saying the dead name. No, what just happened is Steve thought he was being smart by saying the dead name because he doesn't want to say the name of the trans person because he hates. It's just like it's the same old conservative fucking bullshit again. It's like keep it to yourself, bro. We're gonna win by owning the libs again, by not saying the name. That's literally all I hear in my head. But what you assholes don't seem to realize is that every single thing you say in my chat is public, and this is how I lose my channel because you want to own the fucking libs or I get put on some fucking hate watch list or any of these things. I do not care if people are trans. I do not care if people are gay. I will call people whatever name they want to be called. I will use whatever pronouns because people deserve basic respect and courtesy. If you don't like that, you can go somewhere else.
All of the moving to, we have to give people hope before we ask you all to weigh in with your thoughts and questions. And Robin, your advice was for people to live and to confront authoritarianism just based upon who they are. Charlotte and Ricardo, I'm wondering, what is your advice for how to respond positively in this moment, and what, if anything, is giving you hope that the worst may not happen?
I want to hear from Ricardo first.
There's a lot of things that give me hope. Oftentimes the scariest messages are the ones that proliferate, right? But
yeah, that was a good find.
Are good things that are happening here in Texas. So for instance,
good find.
Gave me a tremendous amount of hope recently was there's a Democratic House member in House District 146 who was running for re-election, and she was primaried by a queer Black woman, and this is a district in Houston. The incumbent was really anti-LGBTQ in very many of her positions in 2023. And she came very close to losing her election with Lauren Ashley Simmons actually getting 49.5% of the vote and just narrowly missing out on winning outright and becoming the new state representative, right? And that takes a tremendous amount of effort and commitment from the community to unseated incumbent who has been there for years. And I think that's the energy and the power that we often forget that we have in holding people accountable. Lauren actually submits.
Well, this is actually, and guys, by the way, thank you for who's been doing the investigating work to try to find this person. So what people are talking about, hang on, let me just show you guys real quick what people are actually talking about. Let me show you real quick. Okay. So I'm trying to find someone. I don't normally do stuff like this because I like to use this privilege very judiciously, but I'm trying to find someone. The person I'm trying to find is this person right here. I'm trying to find video of any presentations this person has done. And when I say video, I don't mean short little video clips. I mean, I'm trying to find video of full form presentations that this person has done. This person goes by Felix. That is the proper spelling of their name. Felix, J-L-E-F-E-V-R-E. There is another Felix who is an actor who has a B in their last name. That is not who I am talking about. You have to make sure the spelling is correct. The Felix I'm looking for owns a consulting company for trans and plural kids, plural meaning dissociative disorder, multiple personality disorder, out of Colorado. And this person presented at the Transforming Gender conference that I was at over the weekend. Now, unfortunately, I did not go to their presentation, but they were there. I am trying to find video of any other presentation that this person has done just to get to know them a little better. And I'm sure there's really no there about it. I don't feel like this is all public information, so I don't feel like I'm doxing anyone or anything, but we're running into some dead ends with being able to find video of this person. And so I'm just putting it out there. Felix, I don't know how to say the last name. Felix something French last name. Variant Consulting in Denver, Colorado. And they're not accepting new patients because their practice is full. So any help that anyone has would be great. No doxing, no harassing. Don't do any of that stuff in my name, ever. All I want is to see what they're presenting about and to see what they're talking about. That's it.
Yes, she is.
She's going to win because she has so many people doing what they can in moments when they can to propel her to victory, right? Because she is depending on community, she's depending on small donors, she's depending on community organizations that are aligned with her values of shared prosperity, right? Because we all have the right to live out our fullest potential. That gives me a tremendous amount of hope that in a place like that, we can really galvanize a community to create some change. There are thousands of people that turned out in 2023 to set a record at the legislature. So at the height of SB 14, the anti-trans healthcare ban bill that ultimately ended up passing, nearly 3,000 people showed up to the Capitol to drop a card, which means to formally note your position against the bill. And that's the third most people that ever in the history of when the legislature has kept records, the third most amount of people to ever show up against the bill. But what ended up happening during that time was that their voice was suppressed, right? But despite their voice being suppressed, you can't change the history, you can't change the record, right? And we are, as we are living, writing that record to point back in history to say that we did something, right? And that is the young queer kids that continue to show up and be vocal and unapologetic about who they are give me a tremendous amount of hope. I don't know how to use TikTok, but they do. And what what they're learning is how to use their platform for good, and using your platform for the common good, and remembering that we all have to, even if we don't agree, recognize our humanity and do what is right by Texas, what is right by the U.S. It's watching so many people do that and commit to doing that time and time again, despite how hard it has been. That gives me a tremendous amount.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know we're passing here, but in the nature of my work, I'll sometimes meet a new colleague or a new client. Usually always wonderful. I never have an issue with clients, but every now and then I'll be one who's significantly older and they have a child in high school or what have you. And I can tell that they're very excited. They don't say it, I can just tell they're very excited to get home and tell their kid, oh, we're going with the transformer, how about that? And it's very sweet in a way, it's very endearing. And I don't have the heart to tell them that their kid doesn't care. Their kid doesn't give a shit. You know, a Gen Z young person will tell you to your face that you are a neoliberal sellout, and they'll use your correct pronouns when they use them. That's the future. That is the future.
Why is this queer activist saying that a Gen Z person, who I was assured by conservatives were all turning out to be conservative, why did this person just say that a Gen Z person will call you a neo-liberal sellout? What does that mean? Let's hang on. I just need to knit one more stitch, then we're going to listen to that again. Let's just listen to that last part again.
And I don't have the heart to tell them that their kid doesn't care. Their kid doesn't give a shit. You know, a Gen Z young person will tell you to your face that you are a neoliberal sellout, and they'll use your correct pronouns when they use them.
You are that was neoliberal. That was not new liberal. That was neoliberal. Neoliberal means too close to capitalism. When they say their Gen Z person are going to call you a neoliberal, that's because the Gen Z person is a socialist, because they've been trained by the schools to be socialists. Only socialists use the term neoliberal, guys.
That's the future. That is the future. You know, our generations are coming up. These kids are better informed, more empathetic, and more assertive in their fight for equality than any previous generation. Time is on our side. Time is absolutely on our side. It's really bad right now. But the fight we're having is whether equality is going to be achieved 20 years from now, or it's going to be achieved 40 years from now, or 60 years from now. But it's inevitable. It's coming. We're just going to go through a lot of pain and struggle to get there.
I think you're right. I always say that, like, you know, well, everyone thinks it's not an uncommon notion, but, you know, arc of the world universe bends towards justice. But I think it's bent. It doesn't mean on its own. No one's going to, it is in everyone's interest for things to continue the way they are, and the only way that it doesn't is if people make a change, you know? Like, we want to make sure that the kids that you all are talking about can have the world where they can be and make that change. But that responsibility falls on adults. That's not children's work. It's not the work of kids. It's our job. It's our job for that in order to happen. But we have some hope. We have some hope. Even in the darkness. So can we just take maybe 3 questions from the audience? We're going to go over a little bit because it's starting. Yeah, do you mind, you know?
I can hear your lovely voice.
Hello, my name is Zach, and I'm looking at this. I have the great joy and pleasure of working with a lot of trans youth in Washington, D.C. as part of the Games course together. Youth course called Gen Out. They're wonderful. In those interactions, though, something that I often hear from them is that despite being part of a community that is affirming them at every given opportunity, they're still scared. and they're still even more scared for the people that they know who are not out, who feel that they can't come out because it may not be safe at home or what have you. So I guess my question is twofold. One, what would the message be that you would give to those kids who are too afraid to come out right now because they're noticing all of this that's going on in our society? And I guess my second part of that question would be, what would you suggest that we do as just individual members of the community to make it so that those kids feel more safe?
What was to that?
Please.
I mean, I just think, coming out as a journey, right, I put myself in the shoes of a teenager who's just scared to come out.
Thank you, George Orwell.
I think it was finding my community, my people, feeling safe, taking small steps, and acknowledging that I wasn't ready just yet, and then just taking my time and not having a timeline for it until I was ready to shatter through the roof. Right now I'm here, but Mr. Gay, Texas. That's something that I thought was part of my story when I was 16 years old, being terrified.
Especially being from New York.
Correct. And what we do as individual community members, I think, hold space for their braveness and courage when they are ready, as much as we can. Following their lead, uplifting their message, and fighting when you can, if you can, and advocacy, showing up.
Yeah, there's no right way to come out. That doesn't exist. There is a wrong way to respond to someone coming out, and that is to not ask them what they need in that moment, to make sure they have all the resources they need, that they have a listening ear. You know, there are bad days for folks that have just come out, there's bad days for all of us, but, you know, especially for folks who have just come out, because it's, you encounter things that you didn't think you would encounter, forms of discrimination, moments from violence to people. And what, personally, I think what especially helps for you is knowing they always have someone they can talk to, who's been there before, who can hold their hand through the roughest parts of that journey.
I mean, I think really quickly, more than them coming out, we want them to stay alive. So
Yes.
they need to come out when they can do so safely. Period, full stop. It's not even a question. The second thing that I would say to them is that there are people working really hard to make sure that they can have that opportunity.
Hang on. T-Bone Man is asking a good question. I want to make sure I answer it. So it's indoctrination by the way of affirmation. Partially, yes. But they're also indoctrinating people who are not coming out as trans or queer or any of those things. And how they do it is just by how it actually works in schools is it's not about one lesson or one teacher or any of these things. It's that they have equity and social emotional learning built into like every single class they have. So all of these concepts around race, around capitalism, around gender ideology, around the family, around the police, around every single far left concept, that's all built into every single class these kids have in school now. Maybe not like 100% of them, but it's like a lot of them. And what they do is they just drip it out in just small, tiny little bites so people don't even notice what's happening. It's not one book. This is one of the things conservatives got screwed up. It's not about books. You can ban every single book in the school library. It's not going to make any difference because they're just going to print their lesson plans off the internet. It's not about books. It's not about having a teacher with purple hair. It's not about any of these things. They are built into the curriculum in like the vast majority of assignments that people do. Does that make sense? And then once someone does come out as queer or gender fluid or non-binary or whatever, oh yeah, they get all the affirmation in the world, and that helps along too. But that's not the only component of the indoctrination. When I was still teaching in schools, Gen Z kids were always expecting everyone to state their pronouns, even adults, and they pester you if you don't. The whole pronoun thing is completely normal for them because it's been done in every single class they've ever had. So it's a combination of affirmation and saturation of the whole equity stuff one bit at a time. Hence why you said before that fixing the school, yes, that's exactly correct. And the reason I say fixing the schools is impossible is the problem doesn't start in the schools. The problem started with the colleges of education and the teacher training programs. So we now have 3 generations of teachers that were completely trained in this ideology in college. So it's like you can't fix it's a supply problem. There are not enough unwoke teachers. Like 90% of teachers are fully woke. So not only did they capture the schools, they captured the pipeline that trains the teachers to go into the schools. So can you fix the problem? I mean, if you want to spend 3 lifetimes doing it, because that's how long it will take. Even if every single thing was done perfectly to try to start fixing the schools right now, which will never happen in a billion years, it would take at least 2 generations of people to fix the schools. It's not going to happen in any of our lifetimes. And there's no chance that everything's going to happen perfectly. So it's going to take even longer than that. So that's why the schools aren't fixable. Pledge of Allegiance was normal for us. Well, this has nothing to do with the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, this has nothing to do. I don't think the Pledge of Allegiance should be happening in schools either. I think the Pledge of Allegiance is indoctrination just like anything else, but it would require the same amount of multi-generational change to reverse course, which is something that my fellow conservatives don't That's exactly right. Exactly right. And this is why all the energy and all the money and all the resources focused on banning books and arguing about whether or not we should be banning books and arguing about whether or not it's really banning books. It's wasted. Tens of millions of dollars wasted. Because it's not going to do anything. Means nothing. Your conservative bullshit authoritarianism is not any different than leftist socialist authoritarianism, and don't think you're going to find any friends here. If you want to say, you either love your country or you don't, get the fuck out. Don't come fucking crying in my chat because I tell you something you don't want to hear.
And have something to communicate as well, like that there are thousands of people who are marching in Texas, for example, or in Florida to be able to the state capitol. Like, there's a lot of work being done to make sure that we can. And I think thirdly, what you can do is not only be supportive of people in this moment, but also think about what you can do to make where you live and operate your community safe for these kids.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Tayton. I'm saying pronouns are normal for them just as the pledge was normal for us. It's about normalizing them to the ideology. Yeah, but like as you can see, Tayton, now we've got conservatives screaming about the pledge, or at least one conservative screaming about the pledge as though their type of indoctrinate. Like, and this is the other thing. It's like conservatives think that the answer to leftist indoctrination is conservative indoctrination. Chris Rufo has literally said this, and it's just like, bro, you're literally telling me that you're no different than them. PragerU in schools is conservative indoctrination. I don't want PragerU in schools any more than I want critical race theory in schools. Yeah, we've got people screaming like we just need to bring the Bible back. No. Well, this isn't going to work either, though, because remember, now the K through 12 schools are completely captured. So there's no way for you to do this. This will never happen. You can try, like, it's better for us to focus on upcoming teachers and try to remove the woke programming. That's not how this works. We're talking about people who have received this in their K through 12 education from the time they're 5 years old. You don't unprogram programming that they've had since they were 5 years old. Not possible. Anything the brain learns before 8 years old is virtually impossible to undo. And that's if the person wants to undo it. If they don't want to undo it, just give up, go home, go to drink at the bar, go for a walk, go there's nothing you can do. Yes, correct. Homeschooling is the only alternative. Pull your kids out of school. That's it. I know you don't want to. I know that's scary. I know it's hard. I know you feel like you're going to screw up your kids even more. I know you feel like you don't know how to teach them. You got to get over all that, and you got to get over it right quick. Homeschooling is the only way to fix this problem on a mass scale. Yes, if you learn French before you're 8, yes. Yes. My husband started learning English when he was like 6 years old. That's what they do in other countries, guys. Maybe people who live outside the United States can testify to this. That's what they do in other countries. They start teaching kids English, but like when they're babies, basically. My husband started learning English in school when he was 6 or 7 years old, as a part of the normal curriculum. And the reason you teach people languages that young is it gets in their head, and it's there. It is significantly easier to learn a language when you're a little kid than it is to learn it when you're an adult. Significantly easier. Not even close.
So if there's ever an anti-trans conversation that's going to be at the school board, show it. If there's going to be a debate locally in the state legislature, or not in DC, make your voice heard. Try to create a space for also kids who are queer to be able to come together, because that's also a huge thing. They not only want to do that online, but the spaces. So there's lots of things that we can do immediately where you are. You have a question?
Look, thank you. So we were taking the picture that they are using fear of us, whether or not to that, distracting things they can't solve or don't know how to solve. What are things that we can do other than just being ourselves and invisible to defang that fear and refocus the conversation on the stuff that we really need to fix? Because frankly, I don't think any of us wants to do anything to them or how we should live. So what are your suggestions in terms of how we become present and actually defang that fear and sort of get the conversation where it needs to be?
Yeah, I'll take that and jump on. I mean, I think that one of the most underappreciated parts of the marriage campaign was the encouragement for people who are gay to talk to their families about marriage. There's a huge push to do that. And I think that in this moment, in this environment, that in your families or friends or even workplaces, they may be reticent to talk about this, but that's literally one thing that you can do is to begin to have people interrogate their own thoughts about this through conversation. Like you personally do have that power, right? And then in that, telling your own story and how the environment relates to you. That's something that you can do in a lot of places. And that's a really powerful thing. I also think that in general, as a part of that, people underestimate the power of making their voices heard. One of the things that happened, and you guys have done this really successfully, but in other states, one of the reasons why they pass anti-trans laws is because they can be consequence free. That no one's going to care. And so to the degree that you can engage people around you and also make your voice heard, that actually helps a lot.
Thanks, Murphy School.
I think that also going ahead and holding politicians and the media accountable when they take the bait and talk about non-issues instead of the real issues. I think demanding that we spend time talking about inflation and unemployment and calling out that this is a distraction that is exceedingly costly. I think it's important. I think naming what's happening is really important.
Well, I think that that's all that we have time for. Sadly, there are other sessions that are going to use this room.
All right, let me get this last super chat from Rottweiler. As a teacher, I quit school, joined a homeschooling co-op part-time, and educate parents on the woke language to sow as much distrust as I humanly can. This is the type of stuff that needs to happen, guys. The reason I do this 6 days a week, and I'm not saying everyone needs to come for all 6 streams a week. That's a lot. I understand. I'm here for all of them. I get it. But the reason that I do this for 6 days a week is to teach people as much as I can about the language, to show you how it shows up in the world, to break it down for you in plain English. And the intent of this is that I am equipping you with everything you need in order to go into the world, into your communities, to teach other people about the language, to teach other people how it's showing up, to cause problems, to be subversive, to throw sand in their gears. So you got to take what I'm teaching you here and you got to go do something with it. My job is to show up and to teach it and to break it down and create as many materials as I can out of it. And I spend 12 to 16 hours a day doing this, and I have no other life. And I'm doing that to give you guys the resources to do something with it, okay? Thank you, Forest Mommy. Appreciate you. Well, guys, we're going to watch another presentation today, but I think we're going to wrap it up. We had a bit of a long stream yesterday. I've got a class coming up in a little bit, so I think I'm going to call it there for the day. We'll be back at 5 p.m. tomorrow for happy hour, and we will have beer. So get your drink of choice. Come and join us at 5 p.m. And I want to remind everyone, please make sure you are signed up for my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. This is actually my main content hub on the internet. You're going to find all sorts of great stuff. You're going to find the Woke 101 series, where I'm breaking down the woke ideology in plain English. You're going to find the Woke Mind series, where I explain the psychology of the left. You're going to find the How to Speak Socialist part, where you can actually go in and take my full on-demand 2-hour class, How to Speak Socialist, for free. If you have not taken this class, please take it. I know it's 2 hours long, but this is your crash course of the language of the left. I'm going to be doing another update of this. I'm going to be doing a level 2 of this very soon. More information coming out about that. And you can listen to the latest episode of the Actively Unwoke podcast, where I explained explicitly why the left keeps winning and why the right keeps losing. And if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, because I am 100% funded by people like you, I am an independent content creator. I serve no master except for you guys. My only job is to show up and to show you what's going on and to tell you the truth and to give you the receipts so you can judge for yourself. You never have to take my word for it. You can always look at where I'm getting this information. If you want to fund what I'm doing and keep me in business, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year on the Substack. I cannot do it without you guys. Everything that goes into the Substack goes to fund independent investigative journalism and doing streams like this with you, where I just spent 2.5 hours breaking down a video and watching it just for fun. All right, guys, I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please mount the like button on the way out the door. Please make sure you're subscribed on whatever channel you're watching on. Take care, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye.